Hello there, good morning, and a warm welcome to the KFM Views, People and News of VPN right here, 933 KFM. I'm your host, Judith Atim. Well, the presidential campaigns, as you all know, kicked off on Monday, and for the next few weeks, presidential candidates will be traversing the country seeking your vote. Their primary tool, the Manifesto. And this morning, as we're now 6 days into the campaign period, we're asking, do the manifestos of our major presidential candidates truly align with the urgent demands of the Ugandan people? Well, in other words, the topic is, do the manifestos of our candidates align with the demands of Ugandans or the Ugandan voters? Of course, we'll be scrutinizing the manifestos from the National Resistance Movement, the National Unity Platform Party, the Forum for Democratic Change, and the Alliance for National Transformation. And I am happy to be joined by a group of incredible gentlemen in the studio. I have with me Honorable Michael Kabaziguruka, who is the head of the PFF Electoral Management Committee. He's also the aspiring MP for Nakawa East constituency. Good morning, Honorable.
Well, a very good morning to you, Judith, and to all the listeners of KFM.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Good to have you. I also have in the studio Mr. Robert Chirenga, a well-known human rights defender. Robert is the Executive Director, National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning, Judith, and good morning to our listeners. Pleasure to be part of this discussion.
Well, very welcome to the show. But I just wanted to pick your minds before we delve into our conversation. Just the first week of the campaigns alone, what impressions have you got so far from the different candidates, the visions they're selling, but also issues of police blockades and things like that, and how you think this could also shape the coming weeks and ultimately the outcome of the election? I'll start with you, Robert.
Thank you, Judith. I think we're getting what I would call mixed feelings. Initially, we thought when the nominations had taken place, they looked peaceful. But as we continue the process of seeing different political heads or candidates go out to the field to canvass for votes, we see obstructions. Mm-hmm. Of course, the incumbent benefits in the sense that it's not easy to interrupt with his activities. But we are noticing now complaints from other actors such as the NOP. In Uganda, I think they had obstructions. You could see them using different routes, and they've already started complaining. Mm-hmm. And we are in the first month, so I imagine what is going to be ahead as they go into different parts of the region. Mm-hmm. So there are challenges there, and they've started coming out early. My understanding is that all of us were assured that we're going to have a peaceful election, the Independent Electoral Commission. But I'm not sure whether it is in charge of the ground when it comes to policing and managing security and crowds. Mm. So now we've started hearing complaints from NOP, and we don't know how to really move as we progress. So it's quite a challenge, but it's also not new. Looking at where we're coming from in the last 10 or so years, this is not something new to us.
Well, thank you. Honorable Kabaziguruka, your quick thoughts about what you've witnessed in the last 5 days. Today's the 6th.
Well, Judith, before I even delve into the first 5 days of the campaign, I would like to take the listeners back to the nomination processes. As PFF, we did not field a presidential candidate. Mm-hmm. But as the chairperson of the PFF Electoral Commission, I thought that it was important for me to keep tabs on what is happening at the Electoral Commission, especially in the activities leading to the nomination of the presidential candidates. I don't think that the Electoral Commission was fully in charge of the nomination processes. What I witnessed is that there was a lot of security interference with the Electoral Commission processes, that the EC was taking orders from other places outside the realms of the Electoral Commission. For example, on Friday, just 2 2-3 days to the nomination date, some candidates received reports indicating that they had 50 outstanding districts, others 70 outstanding districts.
To collect signatures from.
Collect signatures. And these candidates, or aspirants at the time, submitted signatures to the Electoral Commission for verification, but the EC for some reason decided to, keep quiet and not get back to the aspirants. A case in point is Katumba Oye. Katumba submitted his signatures, and on 21st, on the eve of the nominations, he received a report from the Electoral Commission indicating that he had to submit signatures for only one district. In the report, it indicated that he had submitted 94 signatures for Kabong district, and that therefore he needed to submit an additional 6 signatures, only 6 signatures, which he did. He actually submitted 80 signatures. On the first day of nominations, he received a report, an updated report, still indicating that he had submitted only 94 signatures. So what the Electoral Commission was communicating is that out of the 80 signatures, they have failed to even get one that is valid. They say that all the 80 had been used to support other candidates. So Katumba had another list of 20, which he said, now, verify this. They told him, no, we are going to do it in the morning, you come tomorrow morning, which he did. But for some reason, up to the end of the day, they kept tossing him up and down, up to the close of nominations. Just 6 signatures. And he submitted a total of 100, 80 plus 20, for the EC to verify 6 out of the 100. And on the other hand, you have the National Peasants Party, who received a report indicating that they had over 70 districts outstanding on Monday. But on Tuesday, they are nominated as having fulfilled all the requirements. So you really wonder what was happening with the EC. On the first day of nomination, I was with Honorable Munyagwa. He received a report clearly indicating that he had 52 districts to comply with. The next day, he's nominated. So you really wonder what the EC is up to. So if a process from the outset has issues, then I really worry for whatever it is we are going into. So moving forward to the campaign. Of course, before the campaign trail began, we had already heard from a few actors, like the Honorable Mao, who had made it clear that this would be the quietest campaign
election that Uganda's ever had. So the tone was set long time ago, and security has been briefed on how to manage this process. When the campaigns began in Busoga for the NUP, right from the first day, we had that unfortunate incident in Buyukwe, the accident. And of course it raised, when I saw the police communication, I knew the direction it would eventually take. That one accident would be used to justify so many other police actions in terms of blocking the activities of the NUP. So when I heard about what happened in Iganga yesterday, especially after the Honorable Munyago had campaigned in Iganga municipality, the Honorable Nandal had campaigned in Iganga municipality, for NUP to be denied the right to campaign in Iganga municipality,
speaks to what we are going to experience through the campaign period.
Thank you very much. Engineer, you have made it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to see you. So my guests are actually fully constituted now here. I have the pleasure to introduce my final guest in the studio. That's Engineer Ian Chiyune, former Wakiso District Chairperson. He's also the NRM flag bearer for the LC5 race for 2026-2031, still the same area. You're most welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So we've actually not dived into the heart of our discussion for today, whether the manifestos are actually aligning or whether they align with the demands of Ugandans. I am still asking for your thoughts and reflections on the first 5 days of the campaign. What is your opinion? What kind of impression have you picked so far?
Well, I would like to use this opportunity once again to say hello, not only you, Judith, but also my colleagues who are already here, and our listeners out there. I know they are doing a lot of work, and I believe you have already made my apology for delaying to come in.
I forgot, but yes, you had sent a message earlier.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I think the most important thing is that finally the SIV came out with 8. You know, when we started the journey, we reached 100. We reached 100 plus, 200. Everyone was saying, how long is it going to take these people here to traverse the whole country, which is about 100 plus districts. That means some of them would be clashing in the same district at the same time, or else others will be waiting for others to depart. But as we have all seen, it has finally come out to be very clear that 8 of them managed to go through the SIV. I've had my colleagues making comments here and there. I think we need to find out exactly what's happening with the Electoral Commission. Otherwise, they have the right to say, you have not managed it, or you have. But those are some of the reasons why Parliament thinks about new ideas on how to manage some of these important organizations or bodies within our country. Now, when I look at the first approach, I think some of these parties, because right now most of the candidates have parties. I don't know. I'm yet to really understand if there is anyone who is coming on independent.
No, so far all the 8 belong to a party.
They belong to parties. Yeah. But I've seen 2 of them have come to understand, have ably brought out their manifestos, laid them on table, and I believe that is a good approach, because whatever you are going to tell us must be in black and white, must be somewhere, so that today you don't say, I don't know about this. Secondly, it informs us about your ideology, the future of this country. What are you thinking about this country in terms of this election and you are being elected as the president, or your party being elected as the ruling party? So, as much as you know, I know more about movement, NRM in this case. It helped us to have a big meeting in Munyonyo, and our manifesto was ably aired out. I've also come to know NUP did the same to their members, and I believe that was a good beginning. Let us know what you are up to in this period. I haven't yet come to know about other parties, how much they are doing with their
FDC also has a manifesto.
Good.
Yeah.
So I think that is the first approach, and it's a good approach. Secondary, I've come to see that most of these candidates have managed to start their first journey. I think that is also a good sign that people are coming in, and they are coming in for a purpose. I believe that each one of them have had their cake, their piece of the cake. With the President Museveni, you all know very well, he went back to his origin of his leadership, this 40 years leadership. That is Ruwero. He did his best. As much as all of us believe that was a first meeting, we expect even more bigger meetings than what he had in Ruwero. But I've also seen the other members, each one taking their piece of the cake, depending on their choices in terms of where they are beginning their journey from. What I can say is that at the beginning we had good signs that what Mao talked about will happen. Because actually for me, I'm not worried about Mao's statement. I would prefer that Mao's statement stands in, especially for purposes of protecting our people from any challenges which normally come in at a time when none of us really feels happy about them. Beating about people, clashing with the people who have been allowed to go and campaign and so on and so forth. It's not our interest. Why should we really stop people who have been allowed to go and campaign? So when they began, it looked like everything is going to move well. The accident, we all regret about it. I can tell you, this is not the first time I see accidents. I normally tell my people, whenever I go to Gayaza Road, there's that place after Kumbuzi, they call it Komamboga. I always remember an incident where a girl was knocked dead ahead of us. She was on motorcycle and they clashed one another and she died. I have never forgotten that since 1996 when I've been on campaign trails. So accidents happen and regret whenever they happen. It doesn't matter which party is involved, but as far as I'm concerned, these are Ugandans and we should regret it. But should not be used against anyone that now you did this, therefore you should not continue to do your campaigns. So I think we are telling and we want to talk to the security operatives that if we want a sober and a quiet campaign, then we should let people participate and be guided. Be guided, because guidance is necessary. Not only to us. Actually, I always see President Museveni being guided. Even when he is approaching the rally, there still is a trafficking man, a traffic officer or woman. They go, they direct him up to the point of saying, stop there, don't move any further. But I'm trying to put it to that level. But there are many other reasons why people should be guided in this direction instead of the other. But that should not stop those people from continuing to meet their people. Because the aim of a multi-party system is to give people opportunity to choose out of the best. And what makes me happy is that the person would think he's too tired, he's too older than other people. He's actually at the forefront of running to many districts. That tells that everyone is trying to sell their manifesto. So I think this is the time for us really to advise the security people, to remind them that despite the fact that you are working under a certain government, but we are also having the constitution which provides that at a certain moment there will be an election, and during that election, those kind of acts will happen. The contestants will go out. However, I'm also seeing issues of delayed members of parliament to be declared in some parties, which has caused some havoc here and there. We hear our sister parties which have announced recently about their members of parliament, and we are getting feeling that some of them really are not following what they always say. There are some members of parliament who have stayed so long in parliament, not so long, but quite a good time. You have spent 15 years in parliament. Why are you so worried when they are changing you? That means you are also like the person you're always blaming. They have taken so long in parliament, in government, and so on. That means that leadership is not about time. It's about your contribution. And that's why these people are saying, are you replacing me with this person? Instead, I should continue. So those internal challenges in parties are still now a big challenge. That's why when I talk about Wachiso to go back as a chairman, I say, I as Engineer Ian Cheyune, the first thing I will start with is reconciliation, because everybody is suffering from that. Internally in our party, we need reconciliation. Our colleagues around us, we need reconciliation. Because somewhere, somehow, everybody does not feel the same way. When they are touching his nose, he's feeling the pain. When they are touching another person's nose, says continue. So in this breath, we need real reconciliation. But as far as I'm concerned, I think parties are doing their work. They are doing well. They are all in high gear. And we are looking forward to see the best out of the 8.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think let us now move to... We have 5 minutes to take a break, but I wanted us just very quickly to look at, to start from NRM again. I would like us to, of course, scrutinize the gains of the NRM over the last 5 years and why Ugandans should trust the NRM and give the incumbent, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, another mandate. So the NRM manifesto, of course, the theme is, the slogan for this campaign is protecting the gains as we make a qualitative leap into high middle income status. And in the next 5 years, NRM promises to focus on 5 key areas. 1, growing the economy and creating wealth. 2, infrastructure development. 3, human development. 4, democracy, good governance and security. And the 5th pillar that they'll focus on is regional integration and political federation. I will start with you just with the next 5 minutes. Robert, before I actually go into the gains, because the gains are also quite a lot. It's quite a lot. However, what you notice is the gains do not only... The assumption that when you talk to most critics, the thinking is the manifesto should ideally reflect what the NRM has gained in the last 5 years. But when you scrutinize the content of this manifesto, it goes back to 1986. Okay? So NRM is not giving a proper accountability to Ugandans in terms of what it has done from 2021 to this moment. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, Robert, and then we'll take a break and come back.
Judith. This is quite interesting, and I would beg that before we really go into the manifestos of these political organizations or parties, we need to interrogate this concept of manifesto and really see how it is applied in our context, in our political contestation. Because it is also important that we have a common understanding on what a manifesto is all about. My understanding is that a manifesto is our values, beliefs, ideology of a political organization or party or candidate, and then you need to also manifest the promises of what you think you are going to do for people to change their lives positively. So that's my understanding of the manifesto. The question now one poses is that does our 20 or so million citizens who are considered
eligible voters
or eligible voters use a manifesto as a guide in determining their vote? Do those who came to Munyonyo, who went to wherever they were launching by, coming to listen to a manifesto person? Because we have to have an honest conversation on this. Is that really what brought? Do they understand what a manifesto is all about? Are the citizens conscious enough to know their civic duties and obligations, that I'm going to participate in this electoral process to look at those ideas, values, and beliefs that political party A, B, or C believes in and is going to use in addressing its political agenda? Or do they go there for something else? That is very important that we need. Are they really, do we have a civically conscious citizen that can know that I have duties and responsibilities as a citizen, and therefore I'm going to cast my vote based on what I believe this party is going to do for me? So those are the questions I think that we really need to see. Now, you mentioned how the ruling party has launched its manifesto. But I think it is important that maybe we acknowledge that these manifestos are necessary for purposes of building and nurturing a young democracy as a starting point. The question one would even pose to you, have you seen any of these manifestos in any other language other than English?
Mm-hmm.
Can we take it that all citizens understand English and can interpret those terms that you've used? Or is it in the rallies that you are going to translate these ideas that you have? 2, the manifestos, when you look at them from an elitist perspective, you read and say, whoa, what a beautiful document. the question then comes, how are you going to finance and implement this? I've looked at FDC's manifesto. I've looked at candidate Manandala, what he wants to do with the figures, data.
Yeah.
He even promises to introduce a federalism. But what he wants to do, you can't tell now. What will be the role of the federal state vis-a-vis the other states? In other words, the center and the periphery. Is he going to now take over the roles of the districts when he's talking about federalism? States, how is he going to implement federalism? Then you look at the same thing. How our economy is largely informal. How are you going to finance these projects? So it's something that really you can't understand. And even if you had to tell it to a layman, you really say, how are you going to finance all these things? Then there's the aspect of corruption. How are you going to deal with corruption today and be able to finance those things? Then, of course, the fiscal indiscipline. Expenditure versus income. When you look at the public administration bill of this country vis-a-vis what Uganda revenue collects every financial year or every quarter based on their targets, you wonder, how will someone be able to finance these projects? About 28 to 30% of what Uganda revenue collects goes into debt repayment. So you look at all these ideas and projects they're talking about, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's building hospitals, whether it's building silos, you really question. And then you wonder, do manifestos really matter in our political dispensation today? Do citizens understand or appreciate the words you are using, the ideology, the values of these political actors, the levels of civic incompetence? So what are these demands of Ugandans? Ugandans are basically looking for improved quality of life. And how do you measure the quality of life? Is a person able to eat 3 decent meals a day? Are you able to send your schools to children to decent schools? Do you have drugs in health? Can you access hospitals, health centers? Are they? Do you have doctors and there? That is what they demand. Now, look at the demands, common demands of the ordinary citizen, vis-a-vis what these distinguished gentlemen are promising to do, and see whether they really speak to this. And also, when you go to a rally, understand and see, are these people really coming to this political rally to listen to these values and beliefs and promises that these candidates will? They are going there to receive whatever they can for a meal of a day. And that's the biggest challenge we have. We can appreciate manifestos for the sake of that, well, we are a young democracy, and a young democracy. But then, even if you're young, it means that you have to create an enabling environment for Honorable Kabazinguruka to be able to go and campaign and speak and talk to these issues. As an incumbency that has been in power maybe for the last 40 years, you should create an enablement that competition should be fairly well and well placed, that nobody complains, so that we see and people see that as a result of it. But if people cannot understand your documents and they're just there to receive whatever goodies you're going to supply on that particular day, then I'm afraid that manifestos don't really mean...
They don't speak to our reality. Thank you very much. Let's take a break, and then when we return, of course, we'll continue with the conversation on whether or not manifestos of our presidential candidates align with the demands of Ugandan voters. This is KFM VPN. Welcome back from the break. It's 23 minutes to 10 o'clock. This is KFM VPN, and I'm your host, Judith Atim. We're asking, do manifestos of presidential candidates align with Uganda's demands? And I'll introduce my guest once again, Engineer Ian Cheyune, former Wakiso District Chairperson. He's also the NRM flag bearer for 2026-2031 LC5 race in the same constituency. So, of course, in the studio, he represents the views of NRM. We also have Honorable Michael Kabaziguruka, head of the People's Front for Freedom. He's the Electoral Management Committee head. He's also the aspiring MP for Nakawa East constituency. And last but not least, we have Mr. Robert Chirenga, Executive Director, National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders. So, before the break, Robert, I think we heard what you think, what your thoughts are about the manifestos. The fact that, first of all, they are too elitist and might not have that appeal, that strong appeal. It might not resonate with the ordinary
and not realistic
Ugandan.
at all.
Honorable Kabaziguruka, let me hear what you think about the manifesto. Of course, I've not yet gone into what NUP and the other parties are saying. I just outlined for you the 5 areas that NRM wants to prioritize in the next 5 years. The vision they're selling Ugandans, growing the economy and creating wealth, is actually quite a lot. And when you read the text, you'll also see just how many paragraphs are allocated to each of these areas. Growing the economy and creating wealth, they have quite an elaborate explanation. When they talk about infrastructure development, it's also quite wide. Human development. When it comes to democracy and good governance and security, you clearly see, and I'll read this to you. NRM says the democratic credentials of the NRM are unquestionable. We have continued to conduct periodic general elections where the people exercise their constitutional rights to elect their leaders. The power to hire and fire leaders lies with the people. We will continue to uphold this gain. We also promise to continue protecting life and property, fighting crime and impunity, and combating all threats to our peace and security. But when you started this discussion, Honorable, you took us back to the question of governance and which institution is pivotal to this, especially in the context, the Electoral Commission and the things that were happening there. I would also like us to center a little bit on the question of governance. Robert was talking about the environment within which political parties and citizens are engaging in shaping their future.
Well, thank you, Judith. Now, I tend to agree with my colleague here, Robert, on the manifestos being elitist and not aligning with the aspirations of our people. Judith, you cannot give what you don't have. You clearly cannot give what you don't have. I have heard what you read, that the NRM says that their democratic credentials are impeccable and unquestionable. But if we all go back a few months ago and interrogate their own internal party processes in selecting party flag bearers, the chaos that we all witnessed, the beatings, killings, rigging, and most recently, while here at Kololo, electing the Central Executive Committee, where delegates were being bought like commodities in a roadside market. You know, senior people being bought 1 million, and some of them had the guts to actually go on air and say so and so offered us 1 million, then another one came and offered us 2 million, then this one gave us 5 million. Eventually we went with
the highest bidder.
Now, if this is the organization that now says that their democratic credentials are impeccable, you really worry for this country. You cannot give what you don't have. We know today so many NUP supporters and opposition supporters, including Dr. Besigye, are incarcerated, not because they have committed crimes, but because of their political views which oppose the party in power. In earlier this year, the Supreme Court, in a case I filed back in 2016, dismantled the General Court Martial. But to date, there are people who are still in prison who were remanded by the General Court Martial, which was declared unconstitutional way back in January. In the recent past, you've seen a spate of arrests of NUP supporters who are alleged to have engaged in an illegal drill, being arrested, some being tortured. And you really wonder whether this is the democracy that Mr. Museveni and his group keep talking about. Whether this is the democracy that they went to Luwero to fight for. Now, there is no way you can talk about growing the economy, infrastructure, human development, regional integration without addressing the foundation on which all these should be built, which is governance. We need to sort out the issues of governance and do so openly without, hiding behind elections. The elections in this country have become a ritual that after 5 years we have to go for an election. But an election, especially overseen by an entity that is very powerless to do anything, the Electoral Commission, headed by Justice Byabakama, is simply a ritual that we are going to go through, and results will be announced and the status quo remains. I have told you already that I was at the Electoral Commission throughout the nomination processes, and what I witnessed was a clear sign that the EC is not in charge. To make matters worse, I received information that even the software that we are going to use this time to tally votes was developed in-house by an EC team that I clearly know to be part of the security apparatus. So the credibility of the election that we're actually going into is questionable. So we need, as a matter of urgency, as a country, to refocus on what our aspirations are and stop hoodwinking our people by taking them into an election as a ritual. An election should mean something. The ordinary Ugandan has to have a voice. So we cannot continue on this path of simply saying every 5 years we'll have an election and the election will be free and fair. In 2021, 2016, and other years, after the elections, matters were taken to the courts. In 2006, Dr. Besigye went to the Supreme Court. In 2011, he went to the Supreme Court. In 2021, the Honorable Mama Mbabazi went to the Supreme Court. And in all these cases, the Supreme Court made recommendations on what should be amended in the law. 20 years down the line, no such amendments have been made. We continue going into an election after an election without implementing these recommendations. So many times in this election cycle, the Honorable Matthias Mpuga tried to introduce some electoral reforms. But these were frustrated by the government side. So we are simply going into this election as a ritual because the Constitution says that we must go through an election after 5 years, but we are not going into an election to help this country, to benefit the people of Uganda. So, Judith, I think we must have an honest conversation as a country and see what really works for us. Instead of, reading figures, we've made so much progress in this, we've built so many health centers, health center force, we have created so many jobs. These are meaningless if we do not sort out the core issue of governance.
Thank you. Honorable Ian Chiune, over to you. The centrality of good governance in helping your party or the regime to realize all the other pillars. Just how much, looking at listening to what your colleagues have said, and beyond the studios, we've had these conversations also over and over. And beyond the flowery language that NRM captures in its manifesto in about 5-6 lines, saying, their record when it comes to good governance and is unquestionable, yet we clearly see contradictions in our everyday life. Just a week, 5 days into the elections, into the campaigns, we can already see what other parties are going through, especially the opposition. How much, and I just want a very honest and candid feedback from you, just how much does good governance and creating this healthy environment, how much importance does NRM attach to this?
Well, Judith, I want to thank you for that pertinent question, because I know all Ugandans would like to know exactly what do we mean when we say or talk about democracy and good governance. And I want to thank my colleagues for their input. What amazes me is that Ugandans know very well what they want, and quite often they are very much, they always defy what they don't like. And when you look at the level at which Ugandans are vying and looking for getting involved into the political rhyme, into the democracy that is available now, to the extent of having 200 aspirants for presidential election, more than 7 members applying for 1 member of parliament position in a particular constituency. Looking at how many of these people are coming back, including Ian Cheyune coming back as LC5 chairman after 15 years. My brother Kabaziguruka, you know what he has gone through. He was asking about Usabala. I would ask him about the University of Understanding and many others. It tells something that whereas there are still some shortfalls, there are still some pits here and there, but there is a sign that we are moving somewhere. I'm very happy about my colleagues who are talking about a younger democracy. And indeed, we are a younger democracy. Because this country, in the first 25 years, did not have an opportunity to have this kind of ritual, which my brother is saying is a ritual. It is a ritual, and indeed it must continue to be one for one reason. If it doesn't happen, then people will ask, why didn't we elect this year? You remember we had, there were some people with proposition during the election of 2022 that we are in a COVID time, why don't we postpone this election? The president said, no. This is something which Ugandans know about. We cannot stop it. Instead, we change the way we go to campaign to our people. In other words, if you changed it tomorrow and you said no, the people like my brother Kabaziguruka and I, Ian Chenu, who are vying for the next elections, will say, we have spent 5 years preparing ourselves. So what do we need to look at? Of course, people are blaming NRM that even internally they have a problem. People are forgetting that NRM is a mass party with the high numbers of people who are interested to these electoral positions. And you find that actually NRM is conducting a national election, despite the fact that it's just a party with less resources compared to the nation at large. So we find that we are facing much bigger problem than actually what we can manage now. But we are growing. Slowly by slowly, we can jump over. What I know is that the democracy in this country cannot easily be defined by one party. It requires all of us to sit down and understand what is our goal in this democracy. Our brothers and sisters in other countries, especially those we admire, like US and so on, are sitting down every day to find a solution to what they are going through this term. You know very well what they went through with Trump. Sorry to say, I'm not supposed to talk about another country, but we should use him as a good example. When they had the challenges of people going to their parliament, to say no. To the capital. Yes, to the capital. And it was quite disturbing. But since that time, they have been fighting to make sure that doesn't happen again. to the extent of taking even the Trump himself to court and so on and so forth. What does this mean? That if we have internally challenges, we should work on them, but we should not blame the process. We should work on the challenges that we are facing as a younger democracy so that we can solve them. Of course, some of them have been worked on. One of them is that at least people have an opportunity to go to court. And the parties concerned present their issues.
That person who has gone to court several times is actually right here with you. The iron is not lost on him.
He was beating and he was up there in the air. Everybody said, this is the man over there. Yeah. When the martial court was found not worth the sword at that time. Of course, the challenges of not implementing what he wanted 100% do not have anything to do with the process, because the process was very clear. It came out and gave its final resolution, which was in his favor as a person who presented this case before the courts of law. So that is one big opportunity, that whereas we are still growing, but there is still a way through which you can air your views on the democracy. But most importantly, Uganda at this stage should not only look at the challenges it is facing in this democracy, but should be able to look at what are the advantages that are involved in this. One of the main advantages is that every year we are having actually a high turnover of leadership. We are looking at only one position, but I can tell you movement alone is changing its leaders almost to 99%.
Except at the helm.
I mean, in this case, that's what you can say. And the truth could be.
And that is considered democratic within the party.
Yes, of course.
That you'll change at other ranks,
yes.
Except.
No, not except. Even that rank is also under scrutiny.
Really?
Yes.
You see,
the difference is that up to now, the gentleman of the heart, man with the heart, is still strong enough to present his issues.
And loved by the party.
Don't you see him? If you want to prove this, sometimes he proves us on the field and runs around to show you that
of course, he runs a few meters to his destination.
Engineer, just let's give Honorable Kabazi just a minute to chip in.
I wanted to give him some information that towards the election of the flag bearers, the Honorable Tango Doi told this country that, of course, that particular position, he had printed only one set of forms. So I don't know if that is a testament to the love.
Say that again.
The Honorable Tango Doi, the chairman of the NRM Electoral Commission, informed this country that he had printed only one set of nomination forms for the position of the NRM chairman and flag bearer. So I don't know whether that is a testament to the love or to the good works that he has done, from which Engineer Cheyune and the others should determine. Maybe he should.
Engineer will have an opportunity to respond. Yes.
Let me tell you, the opportunity of this country doesn't lie in disbursing of hard-working people. It lies in checking each and everyone's capacity in the position in which they are placed. And I can assure you, when time comes and the NRM finds that the old man can now be a better advisor than being in charge of the steering, automatically all of us will sit and everything will happen. But this is what I know, that NRM is still, for instance, we are grappling with the issue of our sister in Busoga, Kadag. Everybody is saying now we made a big mistake. But the democracy had to talk.
Was it democracy when there were widespread allegations that money had actually been used a lot to change hands at Colorado?
Unfortunately,
not merely allegations.
I would say that because I don't have, as a journalist, I have to give that disclaimer because I did not see, so that's why I'll use the word allegations.
Unfortunately, Judy, an election is a process.
No matter how flawed it is.
No. An election is a process which has so many things, including even sweet-talking people to move out of your line if you can.
So
regardless of the end justifies the means.
The issue of money is just, for instance, if I want to come to this radio station, the first thing I have to think of is to fuel my car. So I'm using money to come here. But how does that concern you? Do we put this money to KFM? No. Some of these resources you see are facilitation. People came from far and they are willing to vote you, and you are saying, okay, I refund your fuel. You are voting me. I refund your fuel. So it doesn't mean that they are just throwing money to people. But of course, one thing is very clear. We are building a younger democracy, and where there are loopholes, we have to work on them. You remember one time when the president was very clear at Kololo? I think these things were aired live. He said, you people, I don't accept people who are taking away our people from Uganda to other countries. That is a very wrong concept, and it will create big problems.
But he's in charge. Why wouldn't he stop it?
No. This is the first time it is happening. And when it happened...
and continues to happen.
My producer has stood up. James Mawadri is already giving me a cheeky smile, telling me it's time for us to take a break. And then we return. But when we return, still, I'll give you the microphone. You talked a lot on, elections and the ritualistic nature of it. But what ideally should be the substance of this ritual? Is it just merely a ritual, people going to cast? There has to be something substantial about that. We'll talk about this after the break. Welcome back from the break. It's 4 minutes past 10 o'clock, and glad you're still with us here on KFM VP, and that's Views, People and News. We are asking, do manifestos of presidential candidates align with Uganda's demands? I'm your host, Judith Atim, and with me in the studio, I have Engineer Ian Chiyune, former Wakiso District Chairperson, is also the NRM flag bearer 2026-2031 for the LC5 race in the same constituency. Honorable Michael Kabaziguruka, head of the PFF Electoral Management Committee, is also aspiring MP for Nakawa East constituency, and Mr. Robert Chirenga, Executive Director, National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders. Engineer, I'll give you 2 minutes before we move the microphone back to your colleagues.
Thank you so much. I think Uganda is suffering from lack of recent past.
Lack of?
Recent past to compare with within Uganda with what we are doing now. It's like NRM is actually doing something new and doesn't have any other past to look at. And that's where history will judge us correct.
That's why it's always going back to 1986.
When another party takes over, God forbid, we will see the beauty of what NRM has started now. Because there is nothing to compare with. Everybody thinks that what we have done is actually the worst. If you compare what we had before, without this democracy moving on, even having an opportunity to discuss at these television and radio medias about what is happening in our country, then people will see exactly that there is something which we have done now in this period. However, I look at manifestos as a reference point, because you cannot talk about what you cannot have reference on when time comes for action. Because in Uganda, everyone expects to be a leader, especially these parties. I know PFF is working hard to be the next president, and the party in power, or the one running the government. So if you do not document these issues, how are you going to follow them up? Actually, at one point you will be asking yourself, what did we promise the people? So for me, I think parties should form something on which they can reflect on when they are in charge of the government. And that's what NRM is doing. And it's actually giving a good example to many other parties. You find that many of these big parties are now trying to do the same. And I think we should continue in that good spirit. However, I believe that because every party is in competition with NRM now, not themselves, actually you find that every party is not looking at any other party. But they are also competing. CP is in, Common Man's Party is in, DA, I think DA has not presented a president for, maybe they were so shy of something, I don't know. But even though all these parties are in competition, but PFF is looking up to movement. What does that mean? It's looking at movement. That's one they are competing with.
Oh.
They are not competing with the
I thought I had looking up to.
Of course, that's what they are. The difference is that they're not coming. So,
yes.
Judith, what I believe in is that Uganda has to start from somewhere. It doesn't matter whether we are on a wrong footing now, but when we start the journey with the first step, the next step is to correct our mistakes as we move on. I want also to remind my brother, Kabaziguruka, he's the best to understand this. Uganda must start its own journey, especially in technology. So if our Ugandan people are developing an app for our next elections, we should put our thumb up, give them thumbs up, and say, well done. The question is, will it function as expected? That can only be seen at the time of action. But being developed by Ugandans is a good sign that we are moving. Otherwise, who is developing for America? They are Americans. Who is developing for China? It's Chinese. So if Uganda is starting from there, that's where we should also look at taking a strong protection of our gains and taking a big leap
to high middle income.
Exactly.
But do you think the vast majority of your members and your voters actually relate to this high middle income question? I'll give you an example. Sorry, guys, I know I'm dragging, but I mean, the power of incumbency also comes with a lot of issues that you need to address. At the rally when the president held his first rally after nomination, there was that video that went viral of this man from West Nile who is saying, you know, no one should actually remove the president because he has never eaten as much food as he did that day. He even had extra that would take him through the evening. So how does someone who is grappling with issues of basic needs, a decent meal, how do they relate to issues, these concepts, these abstract realities of high, middle income, and so on? Don't you think you should first be grappling with addressing these questions of basic needs?
What happens is that if you have a magnet, its importance is to attract all the small metals around it. So you don't care whether it's big or small when you have a big magnet. When our economy grows, all those challenges you are talking about will automatically be handled step by step. That's why you should focus on developing income. And that's why our party is talking about family income or home income first these days. Why? Because we have put up opportunities, like you know very well that we have developed industrial parks. You know very well that we have been increasing our electricity generation. You know very well that we have been increasing our tarmac roads up to 7,000
That's correct. But so I don't think that guy actually understands
that man
things.
You are seeing,
and he represents a lot of people like that.
I can tell you, the man is talking from experience. We used to go to Kololo, and not even a single sip of a soda would happen. But as our economy grows, the president and other people are saying that it is important to feed your people when you have the capacity.
Thank you.
Shouldn't they be self-sufficient to feed themselves?
This man is not talking about food like he's lacking food. He's talking about the happiness of going to a meeting and there is food. Otherwise, this man is not hungry. How would he reach there?
I'll leave that to your colleagues. I think I want to now move on to, we're still going to scrutinize this manifesto issues in so many other shows, I believe. So let's look at what the other parties are promising. ANT promises to steer Uganda away from a consumption-driven, debt-laden model towards a production-led economy. Muntu also promises a system of meritocracy, so you don't need to access opportunities because you belong to any patronage network somewhere. Also restoring an ethical leadership in our governance. His emphasis is also on justice and peace. The NUP has 11 priorities, and their slogan on the manifesto is "A New Uganda Now." Top on that priority list is restoring freedom, constitutionalism, and human rights, including gender equity. They want to end corruption, consolidate national unity, rebuilding war-torn communities and eliminating sectarianism, equal access to public services, including clean water, healthcare, education, energy, and public infrastructure, etc., and also transforming Uganda into a tech-driven economy. The Forum for Democratic Change has its manifesto sitting on 5 pillars. One is generating employment opportunities, and they promise to deliver a number of things under each of these priority areas, which I'll not go into. The second pillar is strategic investments, of course, in infrastructure, roads, railways, etc. The third pillar is human capital development, focusing largely on education and health services, which is also most of these issues actually are cross-cutting. When you read all these manifestos, they seem to want to address all the challenges that we are aware of. Pillar 4 of the FDC manifesto is leadership and governance, and one of the things is to have a parliament with 1 man and 1 woman for every district. And the 5th pillar focuses on interest groups, women, girls, persons with special needs, border riders, and so on and so forth. So I also want to come to you, Robert. I know I gave Ian a lot of time. Perhaps you also want to respond to some of the issues he had raised earlier before you also give us your thoughts on what the opposition parties, the visions they're selling for Ugandans.
Thank you, Judith, and thank you, my colleagues, Engineer Ian and Mr. Honorable Kabazuguka, on these submissions. My understanding, because both of them are political actors. Ian was a district chairperson of Wakiso. Honorable Kabazuguka has served in Parliament representing Nakawa, so they've been in this politics for quite some time. Unlike me, who is not a politician.
You and I.
True. So,
Judith, you
there
are
are gains.
I am not.
There are gains that really we cannot run away from by the current government. And the major one which you talk about is peace and security. That one is acknowledged. Of course, someone will also interrogate it, and is what do you understand by peace or security? See, the absence of civil war? Would someone who has failed to send his or her children in school be at peace? Would someone who has not accessed justice and is in detention for the last so many years or months without seeing a court of law be at peace or security? If every citizen matters.
Somebody who can't afford a decent meal.
A decent meal. So it is also debatable. But generally, we see that there is some peace and security. So my understanding and my appeal to the likes of Engineer Ian, who speak to the party that has been here for quite some long, it is true we are nurturing a young democracy. But there are certain things that really you need, fundamentals that you really need to address. One is the issue of building institutions. Institutions. When we talk about the Independent Electoral Commission, we want it to be seen as and acting as independent as it can. Because at the end of the day, Engineer Ian and the other folks, you will need these independent institutions. I've always said it, that where you do not have strong institutions, where you do not apply meritocracy, it will come back to haunt you, you the very one. Because right now you don't see a problem until it comes to haunt you, when that very institution is not fair to you. It's now when you start questioning whether this institution really works or not. So these are things that really, where do you want this country to be in the next 40 or 50 years? However young a democracy is. If a whole institution like a Supreme Court can ask you to make recommendations, to put in certain recommendations within a period of 2 years by the executive and the legislature, as a government, you must make sure you respect such institutions, so that every citizen will also, yes, hear institutions work. The Supreme Court recalled that within the period within electoral presidential petitions should be increased, should be done. The period within which there should be a law to govern the participation of public servants in electoral processes. When you go to the airport right now, you will see posters of one candidate. Everyone who works in the Civil Aviation Authority is a public servant. The question is, who is that public servant who came and put posters of a candidate in such an institution as an airport? The second question, would all other candidates have the opportunity to have? Those are the laws that the Supreme Court requested. The executive and parliament put it, they have not. So when you don't build strong institutions, tomorrow, when you are out of authority, these other same institutions will be haunting you, and you'll be wondering, what did you create? So it is important that really you look at institutions and put them there. Now, I go to these manifestos that you've just presented, one of, and as I indicated earlier, they are good. They talk about the what, the wishes, but the how. How are you going to put in place this? How are you going to? I told you that there is what we call financing and implementing these very institutions.
Beautiful manifestos.
Plans that you have. My understanding from my layman, I thought that what someone would do, what are the current gains that you think you can build on? Because it is a fact, NRM has contributed something good to this country. You who think that, for example, let me give you a practical example, the parish development model. It is a good model, people love it, but the way it's being implemented, this country cannot afford to implement the whole parish development model in all the parishes in this country. Why don't you make use of the Uganda Bureau of Statistics poverty data and say the parish development model, good as it is, cannot be rolled out in every district in every financial year? That this financial year we are going to use a human rights-based approach to development planning, and we shall start with the most vulnerable in terms of poverty levels. We know from the Uganda Bureau of Statistics which parts of this country are really facing abject poverty. That we are going to start with the Busoga this financial year. All money is parish development. We are going to concentrate on regions such as Busoga, Karamoja, and West Nile. The next financial year, depending on how this, we shall roll it out. 2, we'll examine and interrogate who are the actual beneficiaries of the PDM, the intended ones. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. In principle, we have agreed that the parish development model is a good model, but how is it being implemented, how is it being financed, and how is it being rolled? Those are the things we should be interrogating right now. Then you look at issues like corruption and its effect on the realization of all these goals that you want to achieve in your manifesto. Does corruption play a role? We have a large informal sector. How do you bring that informal sector into the formal market? How do you make small businesses register their businesses, formalize them? Fiscal policy in terms of taxation. Why don't you want to introduce a tax on land? Why don't you go and say, who are these people holding 4 square miles, 5 square miles with cattle? Are they being taxed? Why don't you bring them in the tax base so that you can get revenue for service delivery? Why do you continue to get loans which you cannot utilize and yet continue to pay interest? Why aren't you utilizing those loans? How much money are you saving beyond paying debts so that you can have service delivery in terms of health, education? So we are saying, can you move away from wastage? Every financial year we are told that government is not going to procure capital goods such as vehicles. But every time CFAO is the franchise distributor of Toyota, comes up with a new model, the first candidate, the first client to purchase it is the government of the Republic. But you had earlier indicated to us that you are not going to procure gas. And this is where the whole problem comes in. So when you look at the fiscal indiscipline in terms of government expenditure, the wage bill, vis-a-vis the income, we are being told that 28 to 30% of all that Uganda Revenue Authority collects goes into debt repayment, domestic debt. So those are the challenges that one would expect, that actually the gains should be, what the manifesto should be speaking, how can we address these ills that are going to affect these gains? Otherwise, when you look at them, you say, no, this is not realistic, and it's not going to help our citizens move from state to A. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Robert. Honorable Kabaziguruka, I'm coming to you. And I know PFF, of course, like you already said, and like we all know, you don't have a presidential candidate. But we also know you signed an MOU with ANT. And the last time we had a discussion here, you were neither here nor there in terms of who do you back as a presidential candidate. I don't know if that has since changed, or you are still just a neutral observer for now. I'd like you to answer that. Then I'd also like your thoughts on the different manifestos from the other parties.
Well, thank you, Judith. It is true that the PFF signed the cooperation agreement with ANT. But that cooperation agreement highlighted a number of areas where we could cooperate. And supporting the ANT candidate was not one of those areas where we would cooperate. As PFF, it is our wish that as the opposition, we should have fronted one candidate. And we've been trying to reach out to all the opposition parties, especially truly opposition parties like the ANUP and ANT, to have one joint candidate. And the discussions are still ongoing, despite the fact that we have two nominated candidates. So the opposition will be made known at some point. We are still consulting.
Okay.
Now, on the issue of the manifestos, personally, I wouldn't want to dwell so much on the manifestos because, as we have already discussed here, these manifestos do not speak to the common challenges of an ordinary Ugandan. We have basic issues that our people are really grappling with, and that is where we should focus. We have already pointed out the issue of governance, but most importantly, if we are to do things that are meaningful to the ordinary person, we should prioritize areas where we believe that the little resources or the little money that we are able to collect as a country is put to good use. In this financial year, if you look at the budget figures, you realize that government is planning to spend 13 trillion on recurrent expenditure. These are wages, fuel, to take these ministers to the NRM anniversary celebrations, to Tarahe Sita celebrations, to Heroes Day celebrations. We are going to spend 13 trillion.
Non-productive sector.
Absolutely. Because you look at the NRM celebrations, the NRM Day 26th January, the day when the NRM came into power.
Yeah.
Then you also have to celebrate the day they fired the first bullet. Then you also have to celebrate the day.
It was very risky.
All centered about the same thing.
That first bullet. What is the significance? It matters a lot.
The man almost lost his life.
You see, these are really the same things we are celebrating. But we are going to spend 13 trillion on these celebrations. And on the other hand, a good policy, like the PDM, we have allocated 1 trillion for the whole country. 1 trillion to get this country out of abject poverty. Now, you see, our priorities are really not in sync with the requirements. So we have these challenges to grapple with. So I think we need to really refocus on the needs of the country. I know for sure because I used to sit on the Presidential Affairs Committee of Parliament, and in that committee we dealt so much with the budgets of State House and the other security organs, the ESOs and ESOs, all that fall under the presidency. The budget of State House, Office of the President, is over 500 billion. That is what appears on paper before you go into the classified expenditure. Now, where you have the presidency, and before we look at the supplementary budgets that always come, raising that to almost $1 trillion, looking at that, you really wonder, where are our priorities as a country? You have people who are running to Kololo to eat a decent meal, one decent meal after 5 years. And you really wonder, where are our priorities as a country? For a man to say, and publicly that this is the first time I am eating such a meal, and as a result, I am actually going to vote Mr. Museveni as president, it should be a cause for worry, not chest thumping, as my brother here is saying. It speaks volumes about what our people are grappling with. When he says, you see, there were 200 aspirants, that is a testament to how badly governed this country is, that every person thinks that they can do better. When I see a man walking into the EC with a chikomando trying to be president of this country, it means that that person really worries for the future of this country. He finds himself a better alternative, because if indeed the incumbent was doing such a good job, then you wouldn't have all these people walking into, every one of us would be saying, no, Muzei muleka kolichi. Leave Muzei, let Muzei continue. But he has really, for lack of better words, bastardized that office to the extent that everybody believes that they are a better and more credible alternative. So these are things that should worry us as actors. Now, when we see what has happened in Parliament over the last few years, when I was in Parliament, I remember we had this issue of lifting the age limit. I saw police and with the military coming into Parliament and physically assaulting members of Parliament. I really think that these are issues we should talk about. Recently, when there was an amendment of the UPDF Act, I saw deployment, I saw Parliament being surrounded. You would think that intelligence has received credible reports that Joseph Kony has been cited in one of the corridors in Parliament. Now, this cannot be the democracy that we are promoting in this country. If a member of Parliament is attacked and beaten like the Honorable Namboze was, the Honorable Semuju was whisked away, and so many others, you saw fist fights, people trying to defend themselves. So we cannot talk about, high-tech economy. We cannot talk about, tamaking so many kilometers before we address these basics, because all that can disappear if we do not manage the governance question. Mm-hmm. We have seen it in other countries where these so-called gains have gone up in flames as a result of the governance question. So it is very, very important that we refocus on the governance question, not on so many kilometers being tarmacked, not on so many hospitals, not on so many, because those can go away just in a blink of an eye. Mm-hmm. Those can, that whole facade can be deconstructed. So I urge our fellow leaders, especially in the NRM, to wake up to the reality and serve this country and do things for posterity, not in the interest of an individual. Because what we now see is that the entire state apparatus, the state structure, is in captivity. And there's only one person, and maybe now aided by the son, who are calling the shots. That the rest of them are actually, I don't know if you've been to a puppet show. You have a puppet master back there pulling the strings. So the rest, what you see here, are people who are simply, being...
Well, thank you, Honorable. It's time for us to take a break, and then we will also open the phone lines after the break. The numbers to call are 0392933933, 0393262933, 0393262933. 934 0751 933 900 to give us a call after the break and have your say. Do the manifestos of the presidential candidates align with your demands as a voter? Have you even taken time to read these manifestos? Do you even have access to them? Do they make sense to you? Would like to hear your thoughts after the break. Welcome back from the break. It's 24 minutes to 11 o'clock and our phone lines are open now. We want you to have your say. Do the manifestos of the presidential candidates align with Uganda's demands? 0392 933 933, 0393 262 933. 0393 262 934, 0751 933 900. Those are the lines to call and you can have your say. But as we wait for you to make up your mind and give us that call, I think Engineer Chione, I would give you an opportunity to actually respond or comment to the issues that your colleagues have raised.
I think my colleagues are rising to the same purpose of this manifesto. Protecting our gains. Actually, what they have been talking about is actually protecting our gains. None of them says PDM is bad.
No, we didn't say that.
So if that is the case, then
I think we have a caller. Hello. Sorry, Ian.
Yes, I am Dr. Engineer Jesus Angel Nicholas.
Excuse me, we cannot understand what you're saying. No, it's okay, just cancel that. Just cancel, we can't. Hello? Hello? Okay, we will take your calls shortly, but kindly be sober when you call and we're having a conversation. We cannot respond to you when we do not understand exactly what you're saying. So just organize your thoughts better. Hello?
Good morning, Judith, and the gentleman in the studio.
Good morning. May I please know who I'm talking to?
This is Dina from Nawaran. Thank you so very much for the good show.
Yes, Dina.
Actually, my candidate, my was just because failure of the opposition coming up with one leader to fight my president is enough explanation that whatever he's doing is just online, and his first campaign was blessed by a downpour from God.
Dina, so you're saying the failure of the opposition to rally behind one leader, I didn't get the other, but she's concerned about that, I think. Hello?
Yes, I definitely think Dina is right.
No, I don't know who that is really. Okay, so I think we'll first, can we just get one more caller and then we give Engineer Chiune an opportunity to first respond and then we come back and receive more calls. Okay, so we'll just, after Engineer, we'll come back to the phone, to the calls, and we'll get your thoughts, your views.
Yes. You know, the reason why we are talking about protecting the gains is that Uganda, as we took it over in 1986, despite the fact that we are under a movement system which brought everybody on board, but everybody still looks at it as movement because the same leader has come up to be the same leader of the National Resistance Movement, moving in with the same ideology, which means that we are following that ideology, although the party itself started in 2005. Now, the big gains we are looking at are the gains which will help this country now to catch up with all the challenges we are looking at. That's why I said, if we are having challenges of income, you don't expect people to be at peace. So, this period when you see us in big debts, it's about an investment period. We have been in investment. We had only one hydroelectricity dam, generation dam. But now you know how many are underway and how many have been completed. When we talk about road networks, when we talk about industrial parks, when we talk about more technology being brought on board, the Kayolas and so on, all these are issues which now we need to protect. protect our gains. The exploration, you know very well that we have had these minerals underground for decades and decades. But right now, gold is becoming one of our biggest mineral on the market with its challenges and so on and so forth. When we look at the petroleum, we all know very well that Amin saw this coming. He put a nut on it and kept it. I think he didn't do bad at that time, but time has come when the population has grown to explore it. Right now, what is going on is something which needs high investment. And therefore, when you see us in debts, it's not for fun. It is something which is actually can be seen in what we are investing in. So what we need now is actually to protect our gains. And some of the things you are raising, my colleagues here, Madam Judith, the very reason why we must protect our gains. Because if corruption is taking away our gains, we must protect this country from corruption. If there are bad institutions, this manifesto must come in and stand in to protect this gain of putting up these institutions, because that is also very important. Do you have the institution in place, like the IGG, like the Electoral Commission, now called the Independent Electoral Commission, as people demanded? And at the end of the day, can we have this making improvement? So the purpose of this manifesto is now to look back and see whatever we have done, how do we make sure it is purposeful to the purpose it was made or put in place for? Because the challenges of this country now are no longer the absence of the avenues of development. It's now the people who are involved. And you know very well where we have come from. Our people have not been used to this kind of institutional development. They were used to having their merchandise flying from all over wherever they wanted. But now when we are bringing things into order, there are so many steps we must take. One of them is to make sure that we bring everybody on board. How do we do it? We go through institutions. And then some people are still requiring some demands. For instance, some of you are complaining what is happening in this institution. But some of these things are individually generated. An individual starts talking as if he's the owner of the institution.
And that's why you take charge and get rid of it.
Exactly.
Look at what's happening in Uganda Airlines.
Did you see what happened to me the other elections? I'm an NRM. But a policeman sprayed pepper spray into my eyes. They had to send so many gas cans to my people. But I'm a member of NRM. Do you count that on NRM? No. Individuals in the institution, in police, did that on that day. And we discovered that actually no one ordered them, but they were just unruly.
Were they held accountable for that?
Of course. We raised our issues and they were questioned and many things happened. So what is happening in this country right now, in line with NRM, is that whatever gain we have got, we should not be put to waste. And I believe if that is done properly and we follow that manifesto, we will be able actually to keep a lot, use it to develop our nation, and then cut down some of these high demands. The job issue. When you look at the job issue now, we have tried to put industrial parks, but we are also attracting investors through these other infrastructure developments. Now, if you don't put that to protection, you can lose. You remember what the president has said. Why do we put up a road and because of one pothole, the road is damaged? He's asking the minister or the Ministry of Works and Transport, why don't you repair this road before it gets damaged? He was giving an example, I think, of Fort Portal, Mubende Fort Portal. So these are all issues about protecting our gains.
So here is the challenge. What happens when an individual is not performing and you are the appointing authority?
Let's pick a few calls and then, Ian, I give you time to reorganize your train of thought and then we continue.
Indeed,
hello?
Spot on analysis. He needs to reorganize.
Because I can, yeah, he needs to catch a breath. Yes. Hello? Hello? Yes, good morning.
This is Juma calling from Bisega.
Yes, Juma.
If NRM talk about protecting the day, how about the former, which was installed by ED, was not protected? The permanent hospitals Iliadongo, Lira, where the structure still remain there. And that it counts so much. For me, what I want, the military must give distance to the candidates to perform their duties. We need the ground to be level. We want to run away from being impunity against your own citizens. That's giving a bad image of this country by military. And who is their chief of command? President Museveni. At the same time, he is a candidate. So we have no good democracy policy here in Uganda. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Juma. Hello, do we have another caller? Do give us your thought. Do the manifestos matter?
My name is Adizat Angel. After about carrots, for example, when I, for example, the vaccine, I was not only to vaccinate children, but also adults. Adults are getting married and seeing people at a very fast stage. But not everyone in the drugstore where I say,
0392-933-933, 0393-262-933. We have a caller.
Hello?
Yes, please. May I know who I'm talking to?
You are talking to John.
Yes, John.
Let that man not just lie people on the radio that they are protecting. They are protecting what? These guys are just swindling money every day when people are suffering a lot in the villages. He's talking of gold. Gold is in Moroto, but how many people are suffering in Moroto? Even after they're schooling, they're sleeping hungry. Where are they? Are they not in Uganda? Currently, they are talking on radio. They are lamenting on radio all the time. The teachers are striking. Primary children in Uganda, in these primary schools in Uganda, the children are not schooling. It's almost now 3 weeks.
Thank you, John. We do appreciate you for your comment. Okay, so I think, engineers, we give you time. In fact, even these questions are coming to you, actually. What gains are you protecting? I think we've had this from Juma and John. What about the structures or infrastructure that was left by previous regimes, especially Amin? The military should allow opposition and everyone else to engage or participate in this political process. Impunity against citizens must stop. John says, what is NRM protecting when you talk about protecting the gains? He's giving examples of, you talk about the gold, the proceeds we're receiving from gold exports. Moroto has gold, but it is still one of the most impoverished regions in the country. One more caller. Hello.
I am a doctor.
No. So children are not in school because teachers are on strike. Yet one of the pillars, one of the areas of focus of the NRM is human capital development, ensuring that kids are in school, improving our education system. But there's a complete contradiction with what you're promising and what we are seeing playing out in real life.
Well, I want to agree that we are in government and all the challenges come to us. This does not mean that other parties, when they take over, God forbid, that they will not face challenges.
Yeah, but how are you responding to these challenges? They are not new. These are things that are perennial.
This is exactly where I am coming to. First and foremost, every item which they are talking about, this government has taken action. I'll talk about gold in Karamoja, for instance. Do you know what has been happening in Karamoja? This is not our own making. Actually, this government is trying its best to come up with the best solution to Karamoja. One of these biggest challenges was holding guns, illegal guns everywhere. And this had actually removed them from hard work to following up people with cattle, take them over, and feel that everything is done. Secondary, bring in leaders. It's now still their duty to elect leaders who will stand into their position. I can imagine this gentleman seems to be one of those people who should be elected if he wishes, because he seems to be having a heart for his area. Let me assume he's talking about the area he knows very well, because some of these issues can only be handled through your representatives. It's not possible for Karamojong to go to parliament. So whom are you sending there? How are they discussing your issues? How much are they attracting to your region? I know very well that Karamoja has people who are even in cabinet for a long time. I don't want to talk about them, but they know them. They are their brothers and sisters. What happens in this country is that we are also divided into a constitutional provision that the government of Uganda will be led under a decentralized system, which is at district level, with lower local governments, at this level being a local government. And all resources, Kabaziguruka will tell you, are disbursed to the district level, leave alone a few resources at national level for national institutions and those bodies which are supposed to be protected and taken over by the government. But most of the services which our people are crying about are at the district level. The challenge with Ugandans, including my district, Wachiso, is that they leave people who can help them utilize the resources properly, and they go in for friends, for a journey and other things, which doesn't really help them. Now, Wachiso people, look at the first 10 years. They were moving at a supersonic speed. Since I left, they are grappling with development. And I can assure you, everybody comes with their own vision. You have to choose good leaders at a position where work is done.
Engineer.
For instance, the challenges of military. Military is coming in because there are challenges. Since we started this program, there's no military I see here because we are discussing at peace. If we started fighting inside here, military will be at the gate and they will be looking for solutions to our issues.
Let's talk about very quickly the plight of teachers, because this is a problem that is recurring year in, year out. We have the same problem. And your priority in the manifesto, the NRM manifesto wants to prioritize sciences yet again, which is not a bad thing. But before you are an engineer because you went through a teacher. Okay, in your formative years, there was an art teacher teaching you the alphabet, teaching you how to construct sentences, teaching you how to comprehend text. Okay, these were not scientists.
Exactly.
Why? How is the government rewarding teachers?
I think we have
before you even prioritize the science teachers, which you're already doing.
I think we have a big lacuna in that area. It's not easy. It's like an egg and a chicken. Which one did we begin with? Someone wise said it must be a chicken because God will not easily come down and warm up the egg to hatch. But the issue here is, whatever we are going to do, there must be a first priority. Protecting our gains here in the first place, we must all agree that science is on top of any country's development. Even the artists know very well that they use paper, they use a pen, they use a chalk, and all those are results of science. There's no one who is underrating an art or someone who didn't do science.
But how do you know? How do you know that this is a pen, this is a book, before someone tells you that that's what it is?
Of course, we all.
How do you make sense of your environment?
That's why I said it's an egg and chicken business, because all of us believe, but we must also look at the other issue. When you want to take a big leap, where do you gain it from? Because we all know very well that science started here through the stone egg. And what inspired it was the fire from the stone. That is science. Before anybody read about anything, there was that fire which began, and that is science. So somewhere, somehow, there is science. But that is not the point. The point here is...
We have just about 4 or 5 minutes.
There is no one who is denying these people a good salary. That would be a wrong concept. It's only a matter of where do we begin from with these minimal and meager resources in our budget. Teachers are one of the biggest groups.
Cut on wasteful expenditure, you'll get the money.
Exactly. That's why protecting.
But that's not prioritized in your compared to the other manifestos. We see actually the issue of wastage with the opposition manifestos coming out very clearly. We don't see that very clear in the NRM manifesto.
You know, the word protecting the gains is like protecting the wealth in your home. You must start with the wasteful points. However,
but
for me,
engineer, you need to wind up so that I give your colleagues a microphone.
My view here is, may we take the few gains seriously and then correct the mistakes that would make us lose those canes. I think that's what Ugandans are talking about. Because you can't talk about educating children. In this country, since 1997, we have had a policy of universal primary education. We went to universal secondary education. We went into vocational and university education. Some students are funded by the government. What does it mean? That some people are actually not benefiting simply because their leaders are not helping them.
Thank you, Engineer. I think we will pick this conversation again. I think we need to have a whole discussion on education some other time. Honorable Kabaziguruka, failure of the opposition to rally behind one leader. I think Dina raised this, but I didn't get her question quite well. And you'd also conclude in about a minute and a half, please.
Well, thank you, Judith. As I pointed out earlier, as PFF, our belief was that it would have been good for us to field one joint opposition candidate. But for some reason, we have not yet attained that. We have General Montu, who is nominated. We also have the Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi, who is also duly nominated. And the conversation continues. We still think that...
We also have President Museveni.
Well... You have heard him for 40 years. So we still think that this conversation will continue, that probably if at some point we find it possible, we will then inform the country on which direction we will take. For the time being, as PFF, we will continue advocating for that.
Okay.
Yes.
And that I will also take that as your concluding remark, Robert.
Thank you, Judith, and thank you, my fellow panelists. I think there should be, in my view, deliberate and intentional efforts for public sector reforms that can, one, raise civic consciousness to make these manifestos relevant to the citizenry so that they know why they are voting. Two, we should be able to curb corruption. Because as long as we have corruption, none of these manifestos are good. We should be able to curb wastage of resources and build institutions based on merit. That a person who is appointed to run a public institution is competent enough. As a person, I really feel hurt when I look at the wastage and leakages within an institution like Uganda Airlines. As a consistent taxpayer every month whose salary is deducted in form of pay as you earn, and then I see how resources are wasted on a public institution, I just can't understand this. So these are areas that really, any person you don't need to be a rocket scientist. Thank you.
Thank you very much to you all. Engineer Ian Cheyune, former Wakiso District Chairperson, currently seeking he's on the LC5 race, NRM flag bearer, 2026-2031 same constituency. Honorable Michael Kabaziguruka, head of the PFF Electoral Management Committee, also aspiring MP Nakawa East constituency, and Robert Chirenga, Executive Director, National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders. My name is Judith Atim. I'm your host for KFM VPN. This Saturday, we've been asking, do manifestos of presidential candidates align with Uganda's demands? Thank you very much to all of you who've tuned in and those who've made their contributions. KFM VPN returns next Saturday. For now, we say a happy weekend and, of course, also a happy 63rd Independence Day in advance. Bye.